Marketing as a Foreign Language, episode 279. I'm your host, Kellen Kautzman. The thumbnail says, what content should I create? And our guest today, Danielle Hughes, is going to help us answer that question. She absolutely kills it on LinkedIn. She's got some secrets. I don't know if she's going to share those secrets with us, but we're going to get into that. So stay tuned. We're going to quick talk about some social media news of the day. The big one is Google researchers made a time crystal inside of a quantum computer. This is big news because apparently this time crystal inside of a quantum computer allows the time crystal itself can phase in and out of different energy states without energy transfer. Easiest way to describe that would be, imagine a snowflake that melts into water that turns back into a snowflake, but no energy gets moved around. I clearly don't understand it. Do the researchers at Princeton and Stanford and Google understand it enough to be able to take computing to a surreal level? We will find out. But if you haven't Googled time crystals, you might want to go ahead and do that. Filmmaker Ken Burns, according to foxnews.com, calls Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, quotes, an enemy of the state. So that's fun. I often wonder what it would be like to be someone like Zuckerberg, who is younger than me, by the way. It's weird getting older. Where you've got people, cultural icons like Ken Burns, Mr. Documentary himself, looking at you as if you are some sort of fascist. At the end of the day, people have very strong opinions about Mark Zuckerberg. I've learned this the hard way. On the one hand, Facebook allowed me to connect with my long-lost sister, Rebecca, Dr. Hoffner-Perelman. I never would have met her if it weren't for Facebook. And we need to take a moment to understand just how incredibly transformative that website was. And on the other hand, you have mass exploitation, complete data privacy issues, and cultural transformation that you could argue is straight out of a dystopian nightmare fiction book. So what do you think? Leave a comment. And the final article before we dive into content and our guest today is the LinkedIn CEO, Ryan Roslansky, decides to allow employees to work remotely for good. Oh, that deserves a slow clap. He did it. He did it. BizJournals.com. LinkedIn has become one of the most prominent Silicon Valley-based companies to tell its employees that they will be able to work remotely on a permanent basis. Let's go. If you want to talk about greenhouse gas emissions going down, if you want to talk about autonomy, if you want to talk about letting adults be adults, well, then there is no better path forward than to let them work from home. He probably has saved lives. He probably has prevented someone's back disc from not hemorrhaging after the car accident that they would have got into had he not made that particular decision. Obviously, he's the one that's getting all the credit for it, but he ain't the one making the decision. There's a lot of people at LinkedIn that have weighed into this particular thing, but kudos to the folks over at LinkedIn for making the right and obvious decision. Our guest today is a returning champion. She has been on panels. She has been on the show, interviewed before. She's coming to us from New York. She is the content queen. She's going to answer all your questions. The one, the only, Danielle Hughes.
I like returning champ. I'm gonna put that on my bio.
You did it. You did it. The people are all jealous of you.
Yeah. Sure. I'm sure they are.
This is the goal that everyone wants, is for everyone else to be jealous of their perfect life. What's it like having a perfect life, Danielle?
I mean, if I told you, then it wouldn't be perfect. So.
Okay. All right. You just keep your secrets.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about all the LinkedIn stuff, so we can table that. But if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But your focus, if I understand correctly, is content for businesses. Am I right or wrong about that?
I mean, in regards to like message and positioning, so it's not always exactly content, but it's understanding maybe what that content should be. So yeah.
So let's say I'm going to quiz you.
Okay.
So let your blood pressure elevate and start sweating profusely.
It's fine.
So let's talk about local business, sort of like dentist vibes. Dentist comes in, they've had a practice for a year, they want more patients, I think would be the word to describe it. What should they do?
So don't really work with local people, not out of spite, I just don't really get local clients. But I think the first thing is, why are you not getting more patients? Where's that coming from? Like, take a look at your website, make sure that it's friendly. It's got an array of photos that represent a diverse type of patient. It's clear. It gives like a vibe of, friendliness, that the office is going to be someplace you want to visit, especially because you're a dentist and you have to understand that so many of your patients probably don't want to be there. I would make sure you have a Google, the local Google My Business page. Make sure that's set up, make sure your hours are on there, make sure there's positive reviews from patients, photos. And then I would maybe start doing some outreach in terms of, are you doing like little hyper local Facebook ads? Are you doing direct mail? Is still really good for local businesses, postcards. And think about what you want to convey in terms of your message. What do you want them to come in for? Is it just cleanings? Is it bigger things? Is it just letting people know you're there? It really has to come down to sort of what are you looking for, and then you can figure out how to achieve it.
I have dentist on the brain because I just got back from the dentist yesterday. And let me tell you, there were a couple of moments where it really hurt. I don't know if you've ever had that moment at the dentist. But if local business isn't your niche, what is your niche? Who do you work with?
So my niche is, in a sense, what I do. So I do what I call personality brand, meaning I help you put more of yourself into your message. So I look for individuals and businesses that are struggling to connect with their own message, right? They feel like their message is extremely generic. They don't stand for anything. It doesn't sound like them. There's no distinction or personality in their message. And most likely they're not addressing the pain points of their audience, right? It's very like them focused as opposed to audience focused. And so it ranges. I have a lot of nonprofit clients. I have a lot of like solopreneurs and small businesses, and then brands as well. Like, through agencies, I'll work with brands who also just, for whatever reason, their message isn't connecting and they need to figure out why. And usually it's because it's just really hard to write about yourself. So having an outside voice of someone who can come in and look objectively at everything is going to make it easier. And I help tease out what is fun and exciting and different about you that your audience needs to know about.
So,
right? Including the dentist.
Yes. Right? Antonio Bowling coming to us from LinkedIn writing, "This is great." Oh my gosh, Antonio, you're right. This is great.
Thanks, Antonio. You're great.
10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you want to leave a comment in chat, just swing by youtube.com/Send It Rising. Why Send It Rising? Because that's the name of the agency that I happen to own. Let's use Send It Rising as an example. So right now, as an agency, we're doing all the things you're supposed to do. I'm doing TikToks every day. The TikToks are getting like 150 or 600, 700. It's like the algorithm does that. It'll either give you like 150 to 200 or 600 to 700.
Okay.
You never know what you're going to get, right? And I'm doing like I talked about today, time crystals, because it's interesting, right? Google's doing something. Okay, great. I can't bring myself to create content that is how-to stuff. I can't. But there are people on my team, like Shelly, who does. She'll do a screenshot of her phone, how to help promote a local business, and she'll walk through and on Instagram, she'll get like 39 likes, 15,000 impressions on this how-to content. And I made one how-to video about how to do something on YouTube with Facebook and post a video. And that was like our best performing piece of content ever. So it works. I just can't bring myself to do it. Does that just make me a bad person?
No, but also how do you define it works? Just because you get eyeballs doesn't mean it's working. Did you get business from it?
That's true. We don't get business from anything we ever do outside of literally like sitting down with someone over coffee and talking to them like that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, but that's super frustrating because we want to obviously drive revenue. It's a pandemic, we're still in this garbage pandemic. And, sitting down with someone over tea for an hour and a half is just not an option.
But I guess the question becomes, why are you doing something that's not going to move the needle? Could you do something that simulates the coffee experience, or is another way to just remind people that you're there so that they would be interested in having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So that's like, I view my newsletter and my LinkedIn as basically constant advertisements that I just exist. And so when somebody is hopefully ready, then they'll reach out. It's just like that little gentle nudge, but I'm using it as a conversion tool, sort of, but I'm not putting too much effort into it, because to your point, it's like that's not where a ton of the business is going to come from. But you have to figure out where are the people that you want to be reaching. And like, if doing TikTok videos is like, not moving the needle, then don't even waste your time, and maybe do something else that would be more valuable to your audience.
Yeah, to me, it's one of those sort of, so at the early stage of the company, I put everybody in BNI chapters because that's where all my revenue came from.
Sure.
And it dawned on me about a year or two into the experience that the owner of the company in a BNI chapter is different than, someone who doesn't own the company in a BNI chapter.
Yes.
And it's my fault ultimately, because I'm saying, hey, be in a BNI chapter, be a salesperson, but also be an account manager. Like, do these two things. And the incentive structure was like non-existent. And you know what I mean? So there's just 1,000 reasons why it didn't work, but it didn't work. And I put probably like 15 people in BNI chapters over the years. So that's a bit frustrating to know that something works, but that it doesn't work because it's like you dependent. And so for the company to scale, we do need to find another way to drive revenue. And so no, TikTok isn't working, but it could. No, Instagram ads aren't currently working, but they could. No, the LinkedIn ads aren't currently working, but they could. And so we're just fishing. We just keep throwing out, lines.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard because if you bounce around, you're never going to find something that works because you're probably not giving it enough time. I mean, I'm interested in the networking thing. That's how I get all my business, is through networking and relationships. And so I was an avid networker, meaning I was in a weekly group, like similar to a BNI, but it wasn't a BNI. And I'm in other groups, and I'm in like Slack channel groups, and I'm in listserv groups, and groups of people that are like-minded, where we can all sort of share ideas. And I've gotten a lot of work from those sorts of situations, and then just nurturing those relationships. And even during the pandemic, I did like 250 face-to-face Zoom calls in 2020 and got a lot of business that way. But like, to your point, it is all about like, you have to take the time to create these relationships. But if you put in all the work in the beginning, now I hardly do any, and I'm still engaging with people. I'm still having relationships, but I've set the tone and set the expectation so that I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, so in the early days, BNI was total hot garbage for like the 6 months. First at the beginning, it was just nothing was working, nothing.
Yeah.
And then I got my first client. He stood up. He's like, "Yeah, they're great. Use them." And then, so hooray! So the vast majority of current clients can be traced back. If you look at the tree, they all kind of funnel back to BNI or Michelle's BNI. And now we're at the point where we get warm referrals, and people come back, and clients come out of the and that's fine. It's just not fast enough for me because I'm insatiable.
Oh, well, okay. So it's expectation versus reality for you.
Well, yeah, I want, it's like everything's good. It's just not good enough. It's never good enough.
Yeah. Never satisfied. That's it.
I mean, I am addicted to the idea that one day we are going to be popular somewhere for something, whether it's this show or TikTok. I mean, Shalee got 1 million views on her personal TikTok 3 weeks ago. 1 million. She's over 1 million likes on her personal, and we're selling her trainings. So that's a new thing that we're doing.
Oh, okay, fine. So if you can monetize, correct, to figure out, that there's an audience for that, right? And so that's interesting. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know, but
yeah, it's all good. So yeah, it's really, it all just boils down to my insatiable need for attention, I think is the point. Danielle, how do you feel about that? Do you have an insatiable?
I do not. No, I don't. I don't give a crap. I don't care. I just beat to my own drum. I think I have like a need to achieve for sure. And I'm always trying to like level up with my business, but I don't need people to pay attention to me. That's fine.
So I mean, if I'm being honest, I don't really need it either. But what at the end of the day, it's like a punchline.
Yeah,
But
of course. No, it's funny. Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's like what I really need is to get my staff into positions where they are managing 4 or 5 people and they're
Right.
making 90,000 plus with insurance and
Yeah.
they are good and take care of that, those people that I see every day. I want them to be super successful and it cannot just be me at the end
No.
of the day. Like there's
That's a
no
great
there's
goal.
no one thing I can do that's going to make that happen. I don't think.
I like that goal though, because that shows that you have big ideas for yourself, but also you want your people to really succeed. So I think that is a much stronger focus than just your need for attention, I think.
It is funny because if I look back on my history, it's like I wrote a book, nobody cared. I've been in a bunch of bands that nobody showed up to. Like it's just one thing after another. And then my sister is super popular. And
According to who? What is it? What are we rating her popularity based on? What is that based on?
The success of her business and the number of followers and interactions she gets on social media.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, so she's objectively popular. Like
Fine.
and but I also see what goes into that, she's so funny. She's like, if I don't get attention, I wither up and die. She's like,
I mean, that's a lot of people, right? That's why I was like, I'm not on TikTok. I'm not doing these things for other people's like adulation. I don't give a fuck. Like I'd rather just help people and stay in my little lane and grow that way. It doesn't mean I don't want to speak on stages, but that's not about me. That's about putting ideas out there to help other people. So I guess it's a backdoor to me. Well.
Yeah, and I think that it's like anything. You can't have left without right, which is to say, you cannot. Here's a good way of putting it. So a lot of people want to be rich. Okay, get it. One of these dudes I love, spiritual dude, his name's Ram Dass. I could talk about him for ages, but he's like, have you ever spent a lot of time with really rich people? He says that they're busy being rich, right? And it's a trip. It's like any other trip. You got the poor trip, you've got the self-pity trip, you've got the rich trip, you've got the the cancer trip, you got the Olympian trip, and they're all just trips. And you can go and you can be like, oh, that's what that's all about. Like it's just another game. You slide it in the machine, you boot it up, and you're like, oh, this is what this one's like.
Yeah. Also questioning what is rich, right? Your version of rich and my version of rich might not be the same, right? And then there's wealthy, and then there's ultra rich, and right. So there's like levels and layers for all this. That's why I'm always questioning when people are like, oh, I'm not popular, I'm not this. And I'm like, well, who's measuring? Like, according to who, right? We get to say whatever we want and measure however we want, right? I have a very small list of my newsletter, but it gets good engagement. And like, I'd rather have a smaller list where people respond and enjoy it and have something to say. And it's taken me 40 something years to have something to say than, have thousands of people and it doesn't mean anything and it doesn't impact anybody.
Right. That's fair. I can't argue with that because it's true. So I guess at the core of what I do is this desire to have my staff be really successful. One of my, so the web developer director, Todd Farino, he recently got someone on the team. We have been like, please, baby Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, Muhammad, like give this guy some help, but we can't afford it, right? So I can't afford some $45,000 WordPress web developer in the States. Can't do it. And so we found someone, and he's like, oh my God, he's actually good, and it's working, and hooray, and he's happy, and we're happy, and everybody's happy. Hooray. So that makes me really happy, that sort of stuff. But now I have to bring more websites in. You see, so now it's just right back to the wheel continues to turn. It's like, okay, like this is great, I'm very happy, but now I got to put food on that dude's plate. And it's every time we do this is what happens. And so ultimately it becomes a sales conversation. What are you doing for growth? Are you looking to have full-time employees? Do you have staff? Like, what do you want?
I am not looking for full-time employees. I would potentially have one, like a project manager, But right now I have like contractors. I have a virtual assistant. I have a bookkeeper. I have collaborators that I work with on, like, I'll bring in like a brand strategist or a UX designer or a designer and partner, but it is just the solo show. So for me, growth was a number of things. It was, raising my rates, doing bigger projects, bringing on collaborators so that we could do bigger projects, and kind of changing the way that I worked. And now I'm looking into productizing. So I am hopefully like a few weeks away from releasing my first like digital bundle, which will be sort of 2 worksheets and corresponding videos, and kind of helping people to write their own brand positioning and infuse that personality. So that's step 1. And then I'm also looking into courses. So, because I used to do live workshops, and so now I want to give people a way that if they can't make a live workshop, they'd be able to do it in digital course form on their own. So, so that's next. And then also moving into corporate, working with organizations internally to help employees understand how they can have a brand within the context of the organization, and how that actually helps both them and the company, because they're better able to advocate for themselves, and they're better able to understand where they fit within their team or their organization and what they bring to the table, as opposed to just being told what they should be doing, and understanding their strengths and weaknesses based on their interests.
Yeah, more than any time in the past, the resume includes this line item of what's your social media following, what do you bring to the table? Yeah. Oh yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because oh yeah. So here's a good example. So Shalee Super, formerly Shalee Blackmer, million
TikTok views.
Yeah. So has her own company, has her own travel blog, has had it the entire time. When she was waitressing at the time, when she was interviewing, like, the fact that she had built and maintained her own WordPress website is good. I'm like, yay. I don't see it as, oh no, competition, one day you'll leave us and I am so afraid of the future and this garbage. I was like, okay, good. And it's only been positive. Now watch me cry when she leaves because she gets super rich and whatever.
Whatever. It's okay.
But it's been 3 years, 4 years. And the company has been completely supportive of her efforts. Every time she creates a blog post, I personally comment on it. I'm like, this is great. And I do my little SEO thing where I like regurgitate the title in the comments, which I think gets a little bit better. SEO. But point being that her advancement is a benefit. So these large corporations, all of the following that all of their employees have can be leveraged. The question is, how much of like a dystopian nightmare is it to ask your employees to help you do that? Because it can be very cringy when the corporation's like, can you please share our content on your personal? People are like, why would I do, but if it's like, our company is dedicated to literally saving these kids who just, are like, there's a landslide in this particular area of the world and we are helping do this part, what I mean? Then, and like, hey, we would love it if you guys would like and share this, then people can get behind that sort of thing. So that's the shift, I think, is the content itself being more shareable, and then asking your employees to do it.
Maybe. I mean, I'm not even talking about social though. Like, this isn't about the company's content. This is about you, employee John, right? Let's say you're introverted. Let's say you work in, engineering, and, you're kind of getting assignments, but maybe they're not the best assignments for you. Maybe the way you work is a little bit different, but you don't have the tools to explain to your manager why these things aren't a good fit, because you don't really know, you've never really thought about what interests you or what you're good at, or you take for granted what you're good at. So I help them figure out, here's what you're good at, here's why you should own that and brag about it and tell your organization, because then they can leverage that to help them, which also helps you because you're actually doing something you want to do, as opposed to just getting all like the drudge work. So it's more about that. It's more about giving employees the power to recognize their own skills that maybe they've diminished over time, because we all take for granted what we do really well. We have no idea that it's so hard for other people.
Yeah.
And I help kind of shine a light on that, and it helps elevate the employee and it helps elevate the organization, because now you have happy people that aren't going to leave because they keep getting all the shitty work that they don't want to be doing. And instead they feel valued and appreciated, and they're more motivated.
Okay. So now it's making sense. So yeah, the Dunning-Kruger effect of projecting our expertise onto others is like, I oftentimes feel like I have no skills anymore because all of my skills were relevant 3 years ago. And then I owned the company and I have no relevant skills anymore. So I don't know Google Ads, no idea. Facebook, nope. Like, ask me to create a Facebook campaign, can't do it. Google Ads, can't do it. I could write a blog, I guess, but do you really want, like, you can just go pay somebody $20 who's been doing it for the last, 3-4 years. And so I suffer from that too, because I think to myself, I'm like, I have no skills, right? I've got a bunch of.
Those are your hard skills. Your soft skills are you're really good with people. You know how to ask people questions. You know how to tease things out of someone. You know how to get conversations going, create dialogue. That is a skill, right? And so if a company is like, needs someone to run a meeting, and maybe there's somebody challenging or there's a difficult issue to kind of talk about, they might say, hey, Kellen's like, he's really good at this. Like, maybe we should give him this chance to sort of like do this, because people trust him and he's very open and he just has a nice way about him. So those are the kind of skills that I'm talking about. It's more the soft skills than the technical stuff that anybody can learn. It's more what's innate in you that you're good at, that you probably don't really recognize, but other people around you recognize and appreciate.
Well, that was a little bit of an enlightening moment, and flattering. Do you flatter people for a living? Is that what you do? Do you show up and go, you know what you're really good at? You're really good at growing a beard. You should find a way to.
It's part flattery, but it's truth. I believe me, I don't flatter anyone for the sake of flattery. More often than not, I tell my clients, your website's garbage. Your message means nothing. Nobody knows what you do, but you're really nice. So let's make
that's too funny. It took me a long time to understand what it is that you're doing, because yes, I believe that there are people who want to kill themselves. They're suicidal. They hate their job. They don't know how to get out of it. It is what it is. Maybe they're on, like a handful of medications. They're watching a screen all the time. When they get off of work, they go from screen to screen. Every guru on planet Earth is telling them how they should be living their life. You're one YouTube search away from astral projection YouTube, to go do the next thing, meditation guru 12. They want to actually be spending those 8 hours a day doing something that doesn't make them want to, end it all.
Meaningful, correct? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that does have a lot of value, because
a lot of it is like the onus is on the employee, but a lot of it is the onus is on the company, right? I don't, the fear is that you're saying it's all on you and it's your responsibility to go out and make sure everybody knows. But there's some responsibility there, because we're all responsible for our own careers. Nobody's going to care as much about your career as you do. So you have to take a vested interest in how do you sort of move the needle the way you want to move the needle. But you also need to be in a place that's going to support that. And that's not going to be everywhere.
So we'll go a little bit over today. Do you have a hard stop at 11?
No.
I just want to ask you a couple.
I have a 2:15 though, but that's okay.
I don't even know what that means. The Eastern 2:15. Let me ask you one more question. We'll wrap it up. So time is relative. Yeah. So just the final question is, do people get really nervous because they're basically going to their supervisors and bosses and saying, actually, I'd rather be ... at the end of it? Like, you talk to them and they're going to have that awkward conversation, and put their job on the line, right?
It's not I'd rather be, it's here's where I think I can be the most productive, or do the most for the organization, or be the most successful, right? It's not a rather, it's, I'm really good at this. And so I think actually if I tried doing this, it would be better for our department because, right? So it's more just like shifting the way you talk about it. And again, just being not afraid to like advocate for yourself and speak up on your own behalf. Because I think we have to remember, like, managers are overworked too, right? If they're managing multiple people, it's hard for them to treat everybody the same, know where everybody fits, know who's best served where. I mean, that is their job, but they also have another job to do, which is their own job as well as managing. So you're almost like kind of making it easier for them while also hopefully elevating yourself.
Interesting. Well, I have learned more about what you do, despite the fact that we've talked now on three separate occasions.
It's always evolving, but the next time we talk, it'll be different. So it's fine.
That's true. This is true. Ladies and gentlemen, marketing is a foreign language. YouTube.com/Send It Rising is where you can watch the live show on iTunes, Spotify, and a whole bunch of other platforms. If you are listening to us on iTunes, Spotify, or on a platform like Deezer or whatever, we love you. Thank you so much. Do seriously consider swinging by the youtube.com channel so that you can show us some love there, thumbs up, comment, etc. for the algorithm. If you want to promote the show, there's no better way than to do that. Our guest today, Danielle Hughes, inspiring people to take the right decisions in their career using magic.
No, personality.
No, right, personality, my bad.
Using your innate amazingness.
There it is. So final words for the fine folks, Danielle.
Be you, be more you, and don't be afraid to tell everybody what you're good at and why.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.